This is Live Forward, Love Now, the show about ordinary people living extraordinary lives. On this week's episode of Live Forward, Love Now, I interview Brennan Patterson, the Chief Elevator and Boiler Inspector for the state of Nevada, a father, husband to Sophia, fighter in the Society of Creative Anachronism, DJ radio host, and much, much more. Enjoy a quick clip from his show, Most Punk, Least Punk, on KWNK 97.7 in Reno.
Well, hey there, everyone. It's Brennan, and it's time again for the Most Punk, Least Punk show on 97.7 KWNK FM in Reno, and it's back to new punk rock music. Yes, we have so much stuff. There's new stuff from Tsunami Bomb, and the Raging Nathan's got a thing, and we're playing new stuff from the Dirty Nil, and I even, at the end, I got a special thing from Jeff Rosenstock and Mike Park. But we're going to start with a brand new track from Bad Religion. It's called Emancipation of the Mind. Let's get going on this.
Welcome, Brennan, to Live Forward, Love Now. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm good, Lorena. How are you?
Great, thank you. Brennan, can you give us kind of a little synopsis about who you are, what's going on in your life right now?
Goodness. My name is Brennan Patterson, and I am the husband of Sophia and the father of Marcus and the chief elevator and boiler inspector in the state of Nevada. And I mean, that's the basics of it. And what am I doing right now? I'm trying to survive COVID like everyone else and enjoy life and plan for a future full of more wondrous things. So that's me.
That's wonderful. I'd like to go into, you said you were the chief, can you say that?
Elevator and boiler inspector.
Elevator and boiler inspector. So that's where you work, right? It's for the state of Nevada? That's
right. Yeah.
Can you kind of give us an idea of what your responsibilities in your work include? I know it's a lot.
It is. It's also, it's really something I just completely fell into. I never planned to do this in my life. But I am responsible for the safety for the public and everyone else for all the elevators, moving walks, escalators, dumbwaiters, boilers, CO2 tanks, pressure vessels, all sorts of stuff around the whole state. And I run this little department within the state, and we make sure that all those things are safe, and we give them permits when people want to build them, and we do annual inspections on everything, and we respond to accidents at all hours of day and night when those happen. And generally, we just try to make sure that everyone in Nevada is safe when they're using any of that kind of stuff. It's kind of like OSHA for mechanical equipment instead of for people.
That makes sense. Well, thank you for making sure we're safe. That's a huge responsibility. So you mentioned it's not something you ever imagined doing. You kind of fell into it. So would you describe your journey to where you are now a little windy rather than straight path?
Yeah. Well, like everything in my life I've ever done, I've fallen into. I made plans for my life when I was 10 years old, and not a one of them has come true, really. But all these other things that I've had a chance to do that I've discovered along the way have been great. This job I am working at right now is fantastic. I love it. I love to be able to help people. But I never thought that I would do this sort of, this particular piece of work.
Yeah, so you mentioned you kind of have fallen into things throughout your journey. Can you kind of walk us through maybe some of the highlights of your journey? You don't have to start at 10, but maybe from high school to where you are now.
Sure. It's been wild. In high school, I thought I was destined for a future in the sciences, or ideally in like where science and history kind of intersects. And I thought that was going to be what I would do with my life. My family had other plans. My family's opinion was that I was to join the Navy, and that was that, and there was no discussion. And in fact, when I was 17, my dad enlisted me in the Navy, and I didn't have a choice. He actually signed all the paperwork for me.
Oh, wow.
And so that kind of set out my path very differently. It wasn't until much later in life that I got to go to college. It was something I really wanted to do. I couldn't do it at that time. So I ended up involved with the military in lots of weird different ways throughout from the time I was 17, I guess,
Wow.
all the way up until I took this present job.
Okay.
I did work my whole life either for the military directly or for contractors that were working for the military or something.
Cool. So that's really cool. You're a man of very many talents and interests, hobbies, one of which I know is the Society of Creative Anachronism. Your wife, Sophia, mentioned it in her interview in episode 1 and kind of how you inspired her to get into it or introduced her to it. So can you tell us what the SCA, Society of Creative Anachronism, is and how did you get into it?
Oh, okay, cool. I'd love to talk about this. So the SCA, Society for Creative Anachronism, is this nonprofit group of people. They've been around since the 70s.
Wow.
What they are dedicated to is to present history, living history, essentially. And it's for people to be able to experience history and research in history and to live it and to show it to others, and ostensibly not just to enjoy it, but to learn from it. If you learn what it's like to live every day like it's the year 1200, then it gives you perspective on how, maybe we can do things in society going forward. So it's set up as, it's not strictly European, but it is mostly European.
Okay.
The SCA has a time period, and it's basically 0 AD to 1600 AD. And so within the group, and it's a worldwide group with a couple million members.
Wow.
There's ancient Romans, and there's Renaissance ladies, and there's knights in shining armor, and the whole darn thing, and everything in between. And it's focused on just all aspects of that culture: arts and sciences, cooking, heraldry, calligraphy, combat, equestrian stuff. Farming. There's some cool groups who have little experimental farms that they do everything like they would have done in the 1400s, and it just is a cool group of people. Well, okay, the people are very nerdy. I'm one of them, I know. But the things that these people are interested in, it's living history in the very best way.
I would say it's cool, actually. I think nerds are cool in their own way. I think everyone's kind of a nerd, but I didn't know that. Seriously, my knowledge of it is so limited to just the, I guess, glimpses or, I guess, assumptions from the stories you've told us. So that's really cool to know the kind of the broader vision of it, I guess.
Well, there's a group in my hometown. Almost every town has a group.
Okay.
Some more active than others. And I used to watch the expositions and things that they would put on when I was a kid. Wow. And when I was about 14, I joined and started getting involved in a few little things here and there. And then when I turned 16, I got to be old enough that they would let me start doing heavy armored combat, which is what I've been doing ever since.
Wow.
Ever since I've been doing that stuff. And what that is it's actual sports combat. It's fighting full speed, full power, bludgeoning people. And the only difference between this and what it would have been real life is we don't use real steel swords. We make our swords out of rattan, which is like a solid bamboo
Okay.
that we use so that if you hit someone real hard and it breaks the stick, it doesn't splinter. It kind of just mushes into the fiber. So it's a safety thing, so you can get splinters in your eyeballs.
Oh,
Um,
that's thoughtful.
Yo, no one wants splinters. And we don't use horses because we have to be kind, to animals. And
Right.
the horses wouldn't know what the heck's going on, so we don't do
Right.
that. But it's real life combat, and it can be one-on-one at a tournament level. We host these big events called wars, where
Okay.
you might have a couple hundred or a couple of thousand fighters all on the field, and shield walls and arrows flying through the sky and catapults and lines
Wow.
of spearmen and pikes. And you and your group are gonna, okay, the objective is to take that area over there, so we're gonna charge, and you're just gonna run as fast as you can and smash the other person into the ground and hit him in the face with a big stick, full power. And the cool thing is later on at that night at the camp, they'll probably find you and buy you a beer if you hit them really hard, because there's a lot of mutual respect. Like,
Uh-huh.
oh man, you really rocked me. Come on over, hang out with my friends and I. You're great at what you do. So there's a lot of camaraderie.
That's really
At
cool.
these sorts of events, even though it's based around, for what I enjoy doing, it's based around actually smashing people. I practice weekly, most weeks, and usually on Sundays. And
Okay.
there's not a Sunday practice I come back from that I don't have a few bruises or
Wow.
maybe a light concussion or something.
It's like a hardcore sport, it's take football and kind of multiply it by
Yeah.
100. Wow.
It's so good. It's so good. And the cool thing is too with that, and this goes into the combat sides of it, and it goes into all the other things you're doing, the way you make your campsite.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we camp, they're private events, and they're not. So there's no electric light; it's all firelight, right?
Whoa.
Because we want to keep it period. But you create kind of a persona. If you've played Dungeons and Dragons,
Mm-hmm.
you make a character.
Right.
Well, it's kind of like that same idea, except that you keep this as a persona for yourself, and you find a time and a place that this person came from, and you find you come up with a name and a kind of a history, and then everything that you do in the society, you try to orient towards recreating that persona,
Okay.
in as much as it's possible. So you wear those particular clothes. Maybe you learn to cook in that particular style. I wear specific types of armor and fight with specific types of weapons that work for the persona that I made.
Okay.
And you put all that together, and it drives you to go and read more and study the history. And like, man, I wonder what kind of jewelry that this particular person in this particular place and time would have worn. So you go out and you have like an accurate thing hanging around your neck.
That's cool.
It doesn't usually get to the point where I'm going to cut my hair in a different style or something.
Right.
Like, we still have to go back to work on Monday.
Right. You still have your.
Like, it's so interesting as a way to deeply involve yourself. I know, like, the Civil War reenactors do that same kind of thing, but that's limited to a few years of American history.
Right.
This is 1,600 years of world history.
That's amazing. I have a question.
I'm going to nerd out about it.
I love it. So, okay, so you're part of a group and you go to events called wars and you practice and you have a persona. So is that persona, like, is that what you chose and wherever you go, you take that with you? Or does that persona from a time and place that your group is a part of?
Well, the groups tend to be based on where you live in real life.
Oh, okay.
So I live in Las Vegas, and the whole Las Vegas Valley is a barony, a specific barony, and we have a baron and a baroness, and other people, and they're part of a larger kingdom.
Okay.
So in Las Vegas, we're in this barony called Starcoffin. That's the name of it, and it's part of the Kingdom of Kaid, which is Southern California, Hawaii, and parts of Arizona. That's Kaid. Parts of Nevada, and then it stops in Arizona. And there's another kingdom over in Arizona, and Oregon's another one, and Washington's another one, and Europe is another one. And so you tend to go with either your local group, which is going to be based on people. These are your friends and neighbors that you see in real life anyway. Or you go with, maybe you're part of a larger organization within things. So I'm a member of a mercenary company called the Brotherhood of the Wolf. And we're mostly in Southern Nevada, but we're also in Los Angeles and Phoenix and Seattle and around, and we'll get together. So does that mean that each one of us makes a new persona to play with each one of these areas? No. The barony or the brotherhood or whatever you're involved in will gather things from all those aspects of history. And that's why we call it creative anachronism.
Right.
So that you can have this, you can be hanging out with this ancient Roman dude, while you're in your, 1300s French outfit, and it all just kind of works together.
That's so cool.
For instance, Sophie, she created a persona, and her persona kind of matches with mine as far as their time period.
Okay.
Which is kind of late 12th century people, but she's from the Byzantine Empire.
Wow.
Her character is, a Greek, she's fancy and has nice stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas my dude is from Scotland in that same period. And so, how do you even tell the story about how the two of you got together in the society? Well, there was like the Varangian Guard, and there was Vikings involved, and there's all this cool stuff. But it makes you think about what was that interplay like, and could a lady from Greece and a guy from Scotland have ended up together in that time? And they could have.
Yeah.
And actually, we read stories in real life about how that works. So my character, essentially, my persona, I've had since I was a teenager.
Wow.
And I've built on it and developed it and been the same. And I have a coat of arms registered to me in the society that no one else is allowed to have, and they're mine forever. And I could pass them down to my children if I wanted to, and
wow,
or they could do their own.
Yeah.
And it's so, I mean, yeah, you kind of have one persona. Now, you could have multiple if you wanted.
Okay.
No one's going to stop you from doing that. You can be as inventive as you want. You could be a samurai and an Aztec princess and a lady in waiting to Charlemagne's wife or whatever, all at the same time, depending on what day you felt like playing.
That is
and so
interesting.
Cool.
It just sounds like history on steroids, but in a good way, I guess. That's really cool. Because when I think of history, when we're learning in school, I had such a hard time, if we're focused on this period in this country or this area, I'm like, oh, this is going on. But to be able to link it at the same time in a different area, there were still things going on. It doesn't happen separate and apart from each other. So this kind of brings it together. And I don't know. That was my question. Yeah. Are you going to be walking around with a Roman while, you're in your time period? So it sounds like that could happen.
Yeah, well, for instance, our little Brotherhood of the Wolf that we have, we're technically a Viking raiding band, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Works good for my guy who's Scottish. Most of the guys in the group are Viking one way or another, but we'll link up shields next to a whole unit of Roman legionnaires.
Wow.
And we're next to a whole unit of German mercenaries from the 1500s with like puffs and slashes on their sleeves. And we'll lock shields with them and we'll go into battle, and it's totally okay. Yeah, that's a little inaccurate historic wise, right. But it's not like you can just tell everyone in the world, hey, you're going to be this specific thing. You don't get people to enjoy it that way. Everyone's interested in something else.
Right.
We do have a samurai in the little group I have.
Really?
In the Brotherhood. Yeah, and the guy's really good. He has full-on samurai armor with the big iron, like, Oni mask, and fights with like a big katana type thing. Wow. It doesn't work at all with us in the shield wall, but he's hell of a good charging.
Right.
And he's a fantastic guy, and he's a great fighter. So it adds spice to it.
Yes.
Yeah. What's history if it's dead and dusty? You got to experience it and live it and apply it to your everyday.
Yeah. That's really cool. It sounds like you've been a history buff for a long time. Am I correct to say that you majored in history in college?
I did.
Yeah.
Yep. When I finally got to go to college, I did it not just because, frankly, you really have to have a degree to do anything in the world, as we know. And I needed to move on with my career, and I couldn't really do it without a degree. But more than that, I had wanted to have that. I'd wanted to have that my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
college was like a major thing for me that I'd wanted to go to since I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a chance to until later on as an adult. And I majored in history because that's what I wanted to do. It grabbed my interest most out of anything else. And so, I mean, it's kind of like in one way, it was a vanity project,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it did help my career. It made me hireable in
Mm-hmm.
other ways, outside of a very small networked area of DoD contractors.
Right.
And yeah, if I wanted to escape that, I had to do something else.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I majored in history. It was delightful. It was just so fun. Um, in another world, I would have been maybe a history professor,
Wow.
making no money but loving every day teaching kids about the Norman invasion.
Right.
Um, that would be great.
Yeah, that's so cool how you took your college experience. And it sounds like, your interest in history kind of guided your degree. But what I was going to say is you took that degree and got this job that you have now, but then you were able to still enjoy yourself during the college experience, like you said, beefing up your history knowledge. And I know you knew a lot more before you went to college. Like you're very well read. But so it's just so interesting. And even though you did it later in life, like you still did it. I think some people have the mentality, well, I'm this old, it's too late to go to college. What would you tell people who think that?
Oh, it's never too late. Yeah, it's never too late. If I had, that time right now, I would. There's a few courses I would love to get involved in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm signed up for one later this year. Not an official university course, but it is a lecture series on. Yeah. Anyway, it's on the Iliad and Odyssey, and kind of how that came forward as spoken history into written history and so forth. And anyway, it's going to be fun. And the thing is, it doesn't need to be in that college environment, but
Right.
that college environment is the best place to do it.
Right.
It's structured, and like there's people who get paid to teach you this stuff. It's on a volunteer basis. And so even if you're 30 or 40 or 80,
Mm-hmm.
going and taking a few college courses or earning a degree and going through all that work, it can be delightfully eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
When I was finishing my history degree, I had to take you have to take classes that kind of broaden your experience aside from just what you're concentrating on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up taking a course which was the history of childhood.
Wow.
And I never would have thought about taking such a course like that, but it was remarkable. It was really good. The
Yeah.
professor, she did such a great job of laying out why this is a thing. And it's kind of a new field of study. It's sociological history. And I learned more in that course than I did from any other course I took.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd already read those books. I already kind of knew what I was going to college for.
Right.
But it was fun to talk with people who had the same interest.
Yeah.
And then occasionally you find something like that just, wow, I never would have opened this particular door. And look at the cool stuff behind this door.
Yeah. I think that's what I liked about my college experience is the opportunity to take classes that left on my own I would never have thought of, never would have looked into, but I like the direction that college provides in terms of here are some classes you can take. And so that's such a great experience. And I really appreciate you sharing that. While you were in college, is that when you became a DJ host?
Oh, on the radio.
Yeah.
I was walking through the library one day, and they had a little booth out, and they said, hey, come and be a DJ at our college radio station. And I said, oh, that sounds fun. And so I went, and it turned out to be the best decision I ever made in my life.
Yeah.
Because I met my wife there. And it was just serendipitous.
Yeah.
And such a fun time. Yeah.
And it was history. I'm just kidding. Meant to be.
It was.
So you still are a DJ host, is that correct? For Most Punk, Least Punk?
Most Punk, Least Punk is the show that I do for the most part, yeah. I have a little jazz show I do, but it's kind of on hiatus for the winter. It'll come back. And that's on the KWNK, the Reno community radio station.
Awesome.
So Sophie and I started with the radio at UNR doing Wolfpack Radio, and it taught us a lot, and it kind of got us forward. But a group of people from Wolfpack Radio, including us, but we're not the drivers behind it. We were just kind of along for the ride, but formed Wolfpack Radio into KWNK. Now, Wolfpack is still there.
Okay.
But that kind of core group of people started KWNK, got the funding, got the FM transmitter time, and it's just grown and grown. It's become a really phenomenal local radio station. So, I have a show that I do there,
Awesome.
Most Punk, Least Punk, all about punk rock music. I do it every week, and I also podcast it out all over the world. It's on iTunes and Stitcher and everything. When the iTunes isn't trying to take me off the air for copyright infringement or something.
Oh, whoops.
Well, what are you going to do?
Right.
But, punk rocks, I'm going to do it anyway. But yeah, so now it's not just Reno, but it's out to that's how podcasts are. It's the whole world.
That's awesome.
And it's very fulfilling and very fun. This 1 hour of fast punk rock every week. And it keeps me with my foot back in that world. Since I don't play in a band anymore, and COVID right now, say nobody playing in bands right now. It keeps me in that world of punk rock that I love so much, and keeps me involved with it. And I get to share what I love with other people. And I know there's at least a couple of people out there who also like it. So, they get to enjoy something in life because of doing that. So
that's so awesome.
That's the cool thing about radio and podcasts. You can reach out to the world and touch people with your love and interest.
Right.
And other people can pick up on that, and maybe that inspires them to do something, or maybe it's just, boy, I really like that song, and then they go and listen to the song some more and made their day. Yeah.
So you mentioned it keeps you in the punk rock, I guess, life, or when did you realize your love for punk rock?
I was a really dorky kid, and I had no idea about nothing. And I listened to whatever music I kind of came across, and it was all bad. Like, it was just, I didn't know what I liked, other than classical music, because I'd always liked that since I was a little kid. But, I would just, listen to whatever pop, and oh, this is cool. But I was super dorky and didn't know about anything and didn't fit in anywhere. I was not a part of any clique. I didn't have a lot of friends. And then in about the end of the 7th grade, I discovered punk rock and the punk rock world and that community. And I ended up finding a place I could fit in because I didn't fit in anywhere else. And here was a whole world that says, no, this is for the misfits. This is for the weirdos. You can be here. The whole point is you're not being judged. The whole point is you can do whatever the hell you want to do.
Yeah.
You can be yourself, whatever yourself might be. And that was remarkably freeing and empowering for me at a time in my life, as a kid, as a young man who's pressure from family of you're going to do life this way, and pressure from society of you have to be this way. And none of it particularly what I wanted, but did I have the strength and skills to say, well, I'm going to do my own thing. And the punk rock kind of helped me do that. It gave me it's wrong to say gave me the permission, but it made me feel like, no, I can really get away with just doing what I want.
Yeah. It kind of gave you the space to be who you are. It sounds
It did. And all through, I got really into it in high school, and I started playing in bands. And even though I ended up working for this is the most unpunk thing ever. But even though I worked for the military, that's never where my heart was. And so I might have been working for, to do this Department of Defense project over here. But on the weekend, I'd be at punk shows, and I'd be talking about critical economic theory and how we can actually stand up to the guys that I'm working for my paycheck every day.
Right.
So maybe I don't know. I probably didn't have my heart in what it was paying me every day, but I took their money, I guess.
Yeah.
It makes me probably a bit of a hypocrite, but it's still that being involved in punk rock that allowed me to maybe live with myself while I was working on weapon systems that like killed people.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not proud of that. So when I tried to get out of it,
Yeah.
but the punk rock helped keep me with that sanity, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and to know that there's other ways to fight. You can keep fighting. You can fight from the inside a little bit in certain ways.
Yeah.
Um, in some ways, that's kind of like what I do now, working for the state as this like safety person.
Mm-hmm.
Is it gives me a chance to fight for people who don't, you know, can't necessarily fight for themselves. Like, who's going to keep that worker safe
Right.
on that boiler system when his boss is telling him to go into a dangerous position? No, I can do that. I can keep him safe.
Yeah.
You know, I can make sure kids don't get hurt on a public, you know, escalator because somebody didn't follow the rules.
Right.
And so the punk rock world kind of, my whole life kept me focused on that. Like, there are big issues out there. I don't have to conform to other people's desires or ideas. I can do it my way and still work for the good of the world.
Right.
I was kind of rambling a little bit, but it's really been central to becoming who I am.
Yeah.
Punk rock isn't a music; it's a way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. I've never heard it that way, but it makes sense. And, you know, I don't, not that what I say matters much, but I don't think you're a hypocrite. I think, you know, we have to do our jobs that we got when we had them. And it just sounds like punk rock kind of was like your compass, or what kept you and authentic, and helped you realize, like, okay, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, so I'm going to take these steps to kind of move forward or get out of it or whatever. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's important for people to know, you know, like, who they are is unique and matters, and they're figuring out their journey. And it just sounds like you figured out your journey and you're figuring it out, and punk rock it's a part of that. So that's really cool. I keep seeing you sipping on something. Is that your famous tiki drink, or?
No. No, this is just a rum highball.
Oh, okay. Okay. Nice.
It's Saturday afternoon. I can allow myself one of those.
Oh, absolutely. I was just asking because I know you've taken an interest in making your own tiki drinks at home. And I guess I just wanted to see if you're still doing that for yourself.
Absolutely. But tiki drinks are powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And so one must be careful how often one drinks them. Mixology generally is very fun for me. I like the history of cocktailing and how it kind of works, and tiki is part of that too. And tiki's it's fun. It's irreverent. There's complications with tiki. There's a lot of like kind of historical, cultural appropriation and racism and stuff that was involved in it. So I think it's important to be able to take something like tiki and reinvent it in a way that is not bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, take the good parts of it, take the kitsch of it, and then like leave the 50s racism behind.
Right.
Which you can successfully do. There's actually a pretty good movement happening right now about that.
Oh, really?
And the drinks are just fun as hell.
Yeah.
And like, what's better really than like having a giant pineapple filled with, you know, rum and coconut juice, and it sets on fire and there's allspice involved.
Oh, sounds delicious.
Well, it is delicious. And it's just like, wow, it's fun as hell. I love tiki.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of escapism in kind of like a, you know, not a how to put this. I don't have to go to Disneyland to the magical tiki room.
Right.
I can have a little bit of that here with a little music and a cocktail and a smile on my face.
Yeah. You create your own Disneyland.
Oh yeah, that's right. You create your own Disneyland. That's what you do. And so yeah, I do love the tiki. When I get to have guests at my house again, I hope to mix them many tiki drinks, and we all can wear, you know, Hawaiian shirts and sunglasses and enjoy a tropical paradise, if only in our minds.
Sounds wonderful. I'm there.
It would be good. Yeah.
And,
in the meantime, the rum highball is a classic drink,
mm-hmm,
and it's just soda water with a little tiny bit of rum. In this case, some lemon also, and it's refreshing at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday.
Yeah, Sounds great. I should have grabbed one.
It also keeps my mouth from drying up while I'm talking.
Right. Win-win. You have a lot of interests and a lot of hobbies, and I feel like we just scratched the surface of it. But in order to kind of do the stuff you love, I imagine you have to manage your time. So how do you manage your time to make sure you have time for what you love to do?
Well, I don't sleep.
Oh, that's one way.
It's a joke, I really guess, but also I don't sleep nearly enough. But how do you manage to do everything you ever want to do? Well, you can't. You can. There's way too much in the world to ever do anything you want to, everything that interests you. I look forward to heaven because I am hoping that when I get to heaven, I'll finally be able to go back and check out all the things I missed here. Right? There's just so much that's interesting. So what do? For me, it's a matter of just never stopping. When I go to bed at night, I lay down exhausted. But I try to go 1,000% all the rest of that time. And 1,000% doesn't mean like I'm actually like in my armor and fighting somebody, or I'm actually like at a punk rock show. It can also mean just reading that book. It can mean learning that recipe. It can mean digging those tomatoes in the garden. It can mean whatever the things are that are interesting. It's just a matter of doing it. Don't put it off. Get it, like go and if something interests you, do it. And pretty soon you realize that, well, you don't have time to do everything you wanted to. You never will, so you got to get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But you do have more time than you know. And sometimes it's even like, I know you work a very serious job, frankly, the noblest job I know.
Oh,
what
thank
you.
you.
I work a serious job. My wife works a serious job. It's not like we can just forget about our day when we come home, right?
Right.
So I find that I got to have a little bit of spacer. When you're doing tastings, like let's say you do like a wine tasting or like a dessert tasting, whatever you're tasting, how you have like palate cleansers,
Yeah.
right? In between things, you got to have something to kind of separate out what you're doing. And so that's important. So if I'm had a hell of a day at work, and part of my work is very political, and sometimes that can be very stressful, right?
Yeah.
And just like, oh my God, it's one of those days. Rather than just going to the bar or going home and opening a bottle of wine and just vegging to let my brain kind of go, ugh. And don't get me wrong, I do that sometimes too.
Right.
But I find it's better to say, okay, well, I'm just from work. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to lift weights.
Yeah.
I'm going to cycle a bit, half an hour even, 45 minutes. Okay, now it's like this mental break in between the crazy of work and what I get to do next. So then maybe I can come home and I can try a new recipe, or I can read that book, or I can make a radio show, or I can listen to a new record, or I can repair my armor, or I can research varieties of tomatoes that are going to grow better here, or I can do any one of a million other things that grab my interest. I can go ride my motorcycle. I can go repair my motorcycle. I can read a book about the philosophy of repairing motorcycles.
Right.
I can do all those things because I can compartmentalize the mental effort behind each and every one. I give myself a little palate cleanser in between each activity. I'm a terrible multitasker.
That's fair.
So I don't try to do two things at once, but every little thing that I do, I give my 100% very best at. Marcus Aurelius, way back in Roman times, said, if anything is worth doing, this is paraphrasing, but if anything is worth doing, it's worth doing 100%. And if you're not going to give 100%, don't even bother.
Wow. I love it.
And so I've tried to live my life that way, knowing that I'm going to die someday with 1.5 billion things left undone and books unread. And I hate that, but I'm going to work that number down like as hard as I possibly can until that time. So how do I do so much stuff? because I want to.
Yeah. You just do it. That's what I heard. That's awesome. That is some great advice. I'm honestly the palate cleanser. I'm going to write that down and start doing that between work and my afternoons or after work, because without the commute now, because I'm working from home, makes such a difference. But I love that.
Yeah,
that's great advice. So Brennan, can you share a life goal that you've achieved and specifically how you took the first step to achieving that goal?
Okay. I'm going to go back to when I got to earn my degree in college. It was a life goal for me. And I was in my 30s when I got my degree. And how did I take a step to get to that? Well, I mean, when you want something and you know you need it, what you do is you research. What do I need to do? And so I had already researched before I ever started college, a couple of years before I started researching, okay, where could I go? What kind of credits do I need? How much will it cost? Like, I researched out the whole thing and then tried to make a plan for how I could accomplish it, given that I was single dad in it, at the time, and working a lot and still being involved with music and doing the other stuff. The whole, I'm busy,
Right.
I'm going to do a lot of stuff. How do I fit college into this? And so I researched it all. I made a plan. I saved up money, and then I went and did it. So you make a plan and follow through. That's how you do it. And you keep your eye on the prize. And that was such a major life goal and thing for me. And it ended up being the most life-changing thing I had ever did. Not just because I ended up with a cool new career as part of the result, but most importantly, when I went to college, finally, in my life, I met Sophia. I was there doing some continuing education stuff because Sophia's cool. She got her degree, when she was like 22. She already had a degree. She was getting more degrees.
Right.
Which was inspiring in its own way. She inspired me a lot. Like, believe me, when you go to college as like a 30-year-old guy, except for the guys there on the GI Bill who are also in their 30s, and like everyone looks at you really funny.
Really?
I mean, it's hard to fit in with all the 19-year-olds when you're doing your undergraduate work.
Right.
And you don't fit in with them necessarily, or you might, but they're not interested in talking to you. So, and that's fine. But like, I was inspired by Sophie because like she's coming back after she's already done stuff, and it was really cool. And so, I got to meet her there. And of course, now we're married and we have this amazing life together.
Yeah.
And we are going into the future doing cool stuff. So, deciding on that, on completing that goal, ended up being incredibly life-changing in ways that I never could have imagined. 10 years ago, if we had this interview, and you say, where will you be in 10 years? This is not what I would have said.
Really?
I wouldn't have even conceived of this. I mean, it's not even in the same ballpark. It's not even in the same sport.
Right.
And it's phenomenal. It's awesome. So I guess the point of me saying that is, like, if you have a goal, if you have a major life goal you want to do it. And the cool thing is, it's not actually accomplishing the goal that's going to be so awesome. It's going to be all the cool doors that open to you along that way. Like, the journey reveals really cool stuff.
Yeah. So. No, I love that. What really resonates with me is I think the first step, it sounds like, is you decided. You're like, I have this goal, and then you decided I'm going to achieve that goal. And I think that's so important, and that, in a sense, sounds like your first step. So, were you working while you were going to school?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, full time?
Yeah, I was working, probably, 50 hours a week, maybe 60 sometimes.
Wow. And raising your son.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Well, you have to do what you have to do.
Right. Right.
You have to make life work. And so you do it. Now, in those years, I know I did not sleep at all.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to be able to take advantage of some online courses
Oh, good. Yeah.
through Enchi that allowed me to, sometimes I could be going to class while stirring a pot of macaroni and cheese for Marcus,
Right. Yeah.
after having worked all day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a tough way. Like, you see it in movies and they kind of like, oh, we're going to show what it's like for, the working mom or the working dad or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? No lie. That's hard.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
really tough.
you got an opportunity to practice your multitasking skills, I guess.
I'm still terrible at that.
That's okay.
I still can't multitask.
So, Brennan, the idea of Live Forward, Love Now is kind of sharing what we're living forward to. Like, so currently, what is your goal, your next goal that you're living forward to?
My next goal, my goals are not laid out in time frames like that. I have goals, but I don't know which one of them is particularly the next.
Okay.
Kind of like whichever one I get a chance to tackle, however it works out. I've fallen into everything else, even though I made plans and followed through on them.
Right.
It was life gave me the opportunity finally to be able to act on that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, what goals have I at the moment? I have 2 books ideas that I'm working on.
Awesome.
They will be years and decades in the making, but I'm writing, little bit here and a little bit there. It's a great love for me, writing, and I don't share what I do generally because it's not ready yet, of course, but I'm working on it. So some goals I have are to release at least 1 book. I'm sure it will
Awesome.
be self-published. That's totally okay. At least I will get to have it on the shelf and say, I did that.
I'm looking forward to reading it. So you have your first reader right here.
Oh.
I'm waiting.
Thank you, Loretta. Thank you. So that's a goal. Have a goal to build Sophia's business. Sophia owns her own business. She's inheriting it from her family. It's her family business. She's taking it over. And I have this goal to be a part of that with her. At some point, I will probably be working not for the state or anything, but full-time for my wife. And we have a desire to take her company and grow it into something that is much bigger than it is now. Not because we are trying to get rich. That's not probably going to happen. But it's because we want to be able to put our own beliefs and practices into the world. Like, how can we how can we have a company that would be like what we would want to work for? Like, can we treat people like people?
Yeah.
Can we be moral in the way we go about doing our work? Can we change the idea of being like a service-related business from being like this old, maybe kind of 20th century idea of screw everyone else, I'm in this for me, to like, well, can we get ahead in the world and also help other people to get ahead in the world?
Oh, I love that.
So we want to work on that, and that's a big, big goal for us. And so it's a joint goal, but it's certainly one of mine.
Awesome.
Other things, I have a goal to reduce our carbon footprint as a household, so to speak. That's kind of a long-term goal. I'm not sure that's ever quite met. Short-term things, I need to get back into brewing, and I have a project to start making some mead.
Ooh.
Because I haven't ever made mead, and I want to give that a try. I've made a lot of beers, and I've made some absolutely terrible wine. But I think mead would be fun to do. We have some goals to travel. I have a goal to go back to Mass as soon as it's safe.
Yeah.
I miss going to Mass. My religion is really important to me. I'm a Knight of Columbus, which is fraught with its own complications because of the other people in that group sometimes. But, it's one of those places like that punk rock thing. Maybe I can work on it from inside, I have a goal to go back to church and to keep adding that part of my life and making it, you know, more every day. I've missed it. I guess I took church for granted for a long time because it was always there.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you can't go to mass, and it's like, oh, really missed that.
Yeah.
So these are all things. I have a goal to at some point get involved in another band of some kind.
Nice.
COVID is over, to make music and not just play it for people. I have a goal in my professional life to absolutely turn around my department. When I got hired to do this job, my department was a basket case. Nothing worked. We had been audited by the state and found like everything was broken. And so over the last 3 years, I've been taking this department and trying to make it work. And so my goal is to make it work well enough and professionally enough that I can bounce and go to work for Sophie and nobody will notice.
Wow.
That's what I want. I want it to be so professional and organized that my daily presence is no longer required. So, and in doing that, I can set one little tiny part of the Nevada state government on the path to success.
Awesome.
So these are a bunch of goals, but I mean, like the real big goals are to help Sophie build her company and to write my books.
Those are
and to share with the world some of my thoughts and conceptions, and maybe somebody will find that interesting or at least entertaining.
Yeah, I definitely think so. What do you love about yourself now? And the reason I ask is because I think sometimes people get so wrapped up in their future or thinking, oh, when I reach this goal, then I'm good enough, or then I can love myself, or I'm worthy. So I think it's backwards, right? We have to love ourselves where we are now. And as we do that, whether it's to fall into our goals or achieve our goals. So what are some things you love about yourself now?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely.
Is this a question more of like, what do I do for myself, like self-care, or is this a question of like, in what ways am I happy with who I am today?
I think it's more in what ways are you happy with who you are today?
Okay, that's easy. But this is such a hard question to ask without coming off as arrogant or self-fulfilled, or if you have any experience with kind of Nordic culture or people from the upper Midwest, there's this old thing called the law of Yente, which is like this idea that you shouldn't think too much about yourself.
Oh.
Like, oh, well, who are you to think you're so high and mighty? That kind of thing.
Right.
And that's deeply ingrained into my upbringing and who I am. And so it's very difficult to say I am proud or happy or content with X, Y, and Z. And I feel embarrassed to say that I am. That is my own personal hang-up. So I'm going to try to overcome that now and tell you what I am happy about and how I love myself. And to pull into that a little bit, Thomas Jefferson had this idea that America would be a nation of yeoman farmers. Like every person would be free on their own, self-sustaining, and by the way, he never was. He was always in debt. He owned slaves. He was not a great man, right. But he had this cool thought, right? So every person could be self-sustaining on their own, content within themselves, happy to enjoy nature and the physical world, but also enjoy an intellectual life and pursue the mind as a way of self-satisfaction. The idea of like, okay, I might plow my barley field all day, and at nighttime I'm going to sit by my fire and read Herodotus in the Greek. And I've gotten to this place in my life now where I've kind of done that. I live a very physical life. I'm working out at the gym all the time. I'm like lifting weights. I'm smashing people in the skull with a sword. I'm riding motorcycles. I go to construction sites every day to do my work, my everyday work. Like I'm in the world doing physical stuff, but I'm also thinking about the books that I'm reading all the time, or the new music that I'm listening to, and thinking about what I plan to be doing in the future and reflecting on what I've done in the past and how that informs my everyday. So I love myself because I have become that man that I was inspired to become when I was reading what Thomas Jefferson wrote back when I was a teenager. I said, well, that's a good idea. I can be intellectual and satisfied in here at the same time that I'm working in the world and, actually getting dirt on my hands.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one or the other. We don't have to choose to be, He-Man all the time.
Right.
The exception of like enjoying an active intellectual life. So I think I finally found a good way to blend those things. And that is deeply satisfying to me. I love nothing more than being able to garden. And while I'm gardening, not just think about what I'm going to cook with those garden vegetables, but also think about the way plant genetics work and about how I'm going to plan the rotation of my crops. While at the same time thinking about what the next piece of classical literature I'm going to read is, while listening to a punk rock record, and thinking about how to help my wife and what she's doing, and give her the love that she needs and deserves, and also make time for all the people who I'm involved in their lives, and that I have to think about what I'm doing that's affecting them, and I can do it all. And it blends. It works.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with that. Content with that.
That's awesome.
And I love that I've gotten to that point.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Thank you for sharing. I don't know if you know this about me, but I used to be a camp counselor over the summers. And my favorite part was the camp games.
Really?
Yeah.
I was a camp counselor when I was a teenager for the Boy Scouts.
Oh, awesome.
And I loved it.
Yes. It's a great experience.
Oh, it's so good. So what kind of camp games are we going to play?
So I was going to see if you would play Two Truths and a Lie. Have you played that before?
I have.
Okay. So do you want to go first and give two truths and one lie and I'll guess? Or do you want me to go first?
I want you to go first just because I've been talking so much.
Okay. So I have two truths and a lie. First one, I got engaged at the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Second one, I lived in Faribault, Minnesota after I graduated from college. And third one, I played varsity softball in high school.
God, Lorena, all of those things are probably true. I'm going to say you did not live in Faribault, Minnesota.
Actually, I did live in Faribault, Minnesota. I was part of Net Ministries for 9 months, and I was on the team that was stationed there.
I thought you were. Okay.
But the first one was kind of a tricky one because I did get engaged in Paris, but it wasn't in front of the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, I knew it. I knew that. I knew he was. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, you're tricky.
I know.
Oh, you're tricky.
Thank you. I knew it was going to be hard because I know you know a lot about me, and especially with Sophia and I being close friends too.
I don't know enough, but I remember the engagement being in France, and I'm like, wait a minute, and I've seen a picture of you playing softball. So I knew that was that, but I was thinking, well, I knew she was in the Upper Midwest. Wait a minute, was she in Minnesota?
Yeah, I had a brief time in Minnesota.
Oh, hey, Yobber, hey, I bet you, don't you know, you sure did.
Yeah, it was very cold. Colder than Michigan.
There are a few places cold, like Minnesota. I've been to some colder,
I bet.
Minnesota was cold. Ice caves in Norway, really cold. West Yellowstone, in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter, really, really cold.
Ooh, I bet.
Yeah, Minnesota is just a weird, special kind
It's
of
just, yeah, it's its own cold for sure.
It's cold inside of your nose.
Your lungs, like.
Yeah.
Whew. So, how about, let's see if you can get me.
Okay. In high school, 2 truths and a lie. Did I play shortstop and sometimes second base in high school baseball? Did I play right guard and right tackle on the line in high school football? Or was I in the drama club and had the lead in musicals?
Oh. So 2 of those are truths. Oh, that's hard. I'm gonna guess you weren't a shortstop and second baseman.
You got it.
Oh, that was hard though.
Oh,
But that's so interesting. So you played football in high school too?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love baseball. I
Yeah.
do. But it didn't have that visceral satisfaction of slamming another person into the ground.
Yeah,
like
you
football.
don't get to slam other people. You get to slam the ball, but it's different.
Yeah, not the same.
Different satisfaction. Yeah.
Same.
That's-
And I love being in musicals.
Oh, that's awesome. So you were the lead?
Oh, yeah, and a few.
Wow.
In South Pacific, and in The Wiz, and in Oklahoma.
Oh, wow. That is so cool.
I guess The Wiz, it wasn't really the lead. I was The Wiz in The Wiz, but I only had 3 songs.
Oh. But you'd think that's the lead because it's called The
really,
Wiz.
Dorothy is the lead.
Yeah,
As
okay.
it should be.
That's fair.
As it should be. She's really the lead. And I wasn't Dorothy.
You weren't
But South Pacific and Oklahoma were fun. I
Yeah.
love that old, like, Rochester and Hammerstein, like, super innocent Americana musical.
Yeah.
You know, like, what's more natural than people singing through their daily situations?
Right. I love it. Have you been to Broadway, like a show in Broadway in New York?
No,
Oh.
never. Well, not in New York.
Oh, okay.
I've seen, like, touring productions in LA and San Francisco, but
Oh, wonderful.
never in New York, unfortunately.
Yeah. One day. That's a dream.
Yeah,
To go and see
but when you can go to those things, because, like, when I've gone to see shows, like, you know, I've seen, like, Les Mis and Rent and Jesus Christ Superstar, which is my favorite musical of all time. I even saw, like, the Titanic musical when that came out.
Oh, no way.
I like the theater, and I do love musicals. I don't care for camp. Actually, I get really annoyed with camp, but at the same time, I love musicals. So I know it's weird, but I really like them. They're very fun.
Yeah, I do. I enjoy. I've been to a couple shows here in town at the Pioneer Theater. They've been. I mean, they're nothing. Well, no, they were really good productions, and I never leave upset. Like, I'm always happy that I went. So.
Well, and it's an American art form, musicals are. We kind of invented that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I mean, there was opera in Europe, and operetta became a thing in England, but America invented the musical. And it's just like jazz is an American thing, right? And we, I think, as people who enjoy it, we have to keep going to these things because it's the way that you preserve an American art form.
Yeah.
I mean, it is worth it on its own merits.
Definitely. So I have one more game if you're willing to play.
Of course.
Awesome. It's called Rapid Fire. So I have a coffee cup full of questions that I've already written. I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute, and you have a minute to answer as many questions as you can. So
Let's do it.
I know you're super good at trivia. I don't know if you'll need that knowledge for this, really, but
I'm not good at trivia. I have just polluted my brain with far too many useless facts.
I would argue differently. But let me get my clock out. All right. So let me know when you're ready.
Sure. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Ready, go. What are your study tips for students?
I've never studied a day in my life. Read the book. That's what I do.
What's your favorite book?
Oh, criminy sakes. In what genre?
Pick one. Gotta be decisive.
Plutarch's Lives of the Famous Greeks and Romans.
Ooh. Would you rather have sweet or savory?
Savory, every time.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Don't give a shit what other people think about you.
What would your memoir be called?
Listen to this guy talk way too much.
What's next for you?
Writing that same memoir.
What was your last purchase during quarantine?
Like non-groceries and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a book.
Ooh. What would your superpower be?
Teleportation.
Ooh, that's good. I'll give you that one.
Okay, thanks.
So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That was good.
Oh,
Good
I didn't know I was being scored. I'm glad I did okay.
Of course. I always score. I always keep score. Just kidding. It's a competitive nature in me. So, Brennan, you have some questions for me?
Sure.
All right. So I will start the timer now.
Do you have any tattoos?
I do not.
What's in your wallet?
Not enough money.
What was the first concert you went to?
NSYNC.
In Sync?
Yeah, in 7th grade. It was great.
What are you reading right now?
It's called Decisive, and I can't remember the author, but I will add that to the notes.
What is your most used emoji on your phone?
The smiley face with the hearts around it.
Okay. Ariel or Jasmine?
Oh, that's so hard. Ariel. Little Mermaid's always been my go-to.
Haiku or long-form epic poetry?
Haiku, I like it short and sweet.
What's your favorite word?
Power.
You got it. You got it in time. Hour?
Yeah, I couldn't think of anything. I was kind of, I was like trying to think like something inspirational, and my word of 2021 I've decided is consistency. So I was gonna say that, but then I was like, I don't know if that's my favorite word. It's just the one I'm focusing on this year. So
There's a lot of power in consistency.
there is. But yeah, power. I think. I don't know. You know, our inner power. Like, I don't know. It means a lot to me. So yeah, those were good questions. That was fun.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
You can't believe you don't have any tattoos. You need to remedy that.
I know. Actually, I've been thinking about it. I've never been decisive enough to know what I want to get. So maybe after I read this book, I'll figure out kind of what I want. Because you have tattoos, right?
I have 5.
Nice.
And I have 2 more on the books for this year.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, I'm getting a Celtic knot around my arm here, but not just like some old dumb Celtic knot, but it's from the border of the first page of the Book of Mark in the Book of the Kells.
Oh, okay.
So, you know the Book of Kells?
I don't, but that sounds so interesting.
It's the Gospels, but they're from this monastery. Well, they're found in Kells, this little island monastery in Ireland. They figured it was written on Iona back in like the 600s, and it's illuminated beautifully with all this like ancient Celtic art. And so it's the Gospels, but like one page of it, like you might get like 4 letters on the first page, and it's just all these like crazy knots and dragons and saints and everything. So,
Oh, cool.
and then I'm getting a Saint Michael tattoo on my calf.
Oh, okay. That's
So
cool.
that's my patron saint. So
I was gonna say if you had any connection to him. I really like Saint Michael. Was your last tattoo, is that the one of Nevada? Or was that?
Yep.
That's cool. Because Sophia got one too, right?
we got the same tattoo on Friday the 13th, right before COVID started.
What? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, that's where we got our little Nevada outlines.
That's crazy. That's really cool though. Yeah, I'll let you know if I get one. I just haven't been decisive enough.
Well, when you must be decisive. Never get a tattoo that you're not sure about.
Yeah, true story. I definitely, not going to do it just because everyone else has, but I have been thinking about it. So,
Body art should be personal.
yes, definitely. It definitely has to have like a meaning behind it. So,
For sure.
yeah. Well, Brennan, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your life and just so many interesting things on Live Forward, Love Now.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and thank you for having me as your guest. It's been lovely to talk to you. And I wonder if we do this again sometime years in the future, what may have changed?
Ooh, I know. I'm looking forward to that. I'll be your first interview after your book is released.
Done.
Perfect.
Thanks, Lorena.
You're welcome. Thank you.